Fear not the power of dental fear. Are we going to run our practices like a business? We're going to run them like a hobby. We begin our dental podcast right there.
Computers are live, mixers up, levels are good, equalizers good, ready channels 1 and 2. Mic is live in 3, 2, 1, roll it. Welcome, listeners, to the My Practice, My Business podcast, where we teach dentists and their teams how to reclaim forgotten profitability in dentistry with our clinical business of dentistry training. And now, the host of our show, the clinical director at My Practice, My Business, Dr. Rob Thorup.
Welcome, podcast listeners. It's Dr. Rob with My Practice, My Business. I'm excited today to be with you, and I have a special guest, Wes Jankowski with CEO Dentist out of Denver, Colorado, in the Denver area. Say hi, Wes.
Rob, how are you today? Hey, gang. In for a good show tonight.
Doing so good. I'm really excited. I'm excited you're here, Wes. I've known Wes for I don't know how many years, more than I can count, and he's one of the best dental consultants out there. This guy was with Fortune Management for how many years, Wes?
For about 5 years, back about 20 years ago. That's where I started my career.
That's amazing. And then you've been in on your own with CEO Dentist for how many years?
Just over 15. Seems like forever. 15.
Hey, Wes is a strategic partner of ours here at My Practice, My Business because Wes teaches the things that we teach in the clinical business of dentistry. He doesn't go into the detail that we go into, but the things that he teaches, they are in complete harmony with the things that we teach. So when he's teaching practices, the business aspects of dentistry and the verticals of algorithms and protocols and systems in place, it totally is in harmony with what we teach at My Practice, My Business. And that's why we enjoy working with Wes, and we have considered him a strategic partner for years and years. Does that about sum it up, Wes?
Can't say any more about that. We got to get into this topic.
The topic today is fear not the power of dental fear. And the first area I want to talk about is, let's just talk about the word fear. And the first topic is fear to tell a patient how much treatment will cost. Wes, have you ever seen any practices that you consult with afraid to speak dollars to the patient?
We have people up at the front that are supposed to be the experts, and they have a very difficult time talking about it. I don't know if it's a piece that they feel that if it's expensive for me as the office manager or as a hygienist, that it must be expensive for the patient as well. So our own emotions and our own fears, personal fears, get in the way, and we put it off on the patients.
And what's interesting is we're afraid to talk with the patients about how much dentistry is going to cost because we're afraid of them saying no to treatment, right? Or going elsewhere. Isn't that a common problem we have?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yet in so many other businesses out there, Wes, they don't have a problem. I never had a problem with Larry H. Miller Ford telling me that my truck maintenance was going to be $1,700, and how would I like to pay for that today, right?
I think Larry H. Miller has a shop here too.
Yeah, yeah. He's the Miller family owns the Utah Jazz. I'm sure that they're trying to branch over there also. They have just done a great job in the auto industry. There's no doubt. We really respect them and like them out here. But gosh, this fear, one of the fears that we see all the time, and this is the crazy one, is the fear of office managers and dentists going up against the insurance companies. We just turned in an insurance company to the State Insurance Commission on June 10th. We turned them in and on clinical crown lengthening, and we won the case. How many of our docs out there, there's actually a code for clinical crown lengthening, but many times the docs will take that burr, Wes, and they'll just, chase decay, go down below the gum line and down into the osseous tissue, and they'll just do clinical crown lengthening at will, and so they can establish a really good margin. And they don't realize that that's a procedure and a code they can charge for. Is that crazy or what?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of codes. Actually, when we do our analysis of dental practice, a lot of times the top 25 codes in the practice are the routine bread and butter dentistry codes. Again, there's some bigger ones out there with today with implants and some others, but there's so many codes out there that, you've called them for years underutilized.
Yeah,
and
we have.
The doctors are doing the work. They're just not getting paid for the work that they're doing. And part of it is not knowing. And then the other part is the fear.
Yeah. So we had this patient, we had x-rays of the decay dropping down there right close to the crestal height of the bone and interproximally on a molar. And then I took pictures, intraoral pictures of the cleaned up margin, the bone that had been removed. And with the advent of lasers and ferric sulfate and technology in general, we're able to do that procedure all at the same time. And so when we submitted the first claim, it was rejected. And then we resubmitted the claim and we asked for a peer-to-peer review. And guess what we got? We got a peer review, not a peer-to-peer review. And the peer review, the expert dentist out there looked at it and said, nope, not doing it. You're not getting paid for it. So we got a little ticked. My office manager, who happens to be my awesome wife, and I'm just fortunate that I can work with my wife and still maintain our marriage. It works for some of us, others sometimes it doesn't. But it's been a lot of fun working with Tracy, and she got ticked. She called the Utah State Insurance Commission. We submitted everything on June 10th, and guess what? It's 28 days later, we got paid. We just got paid today. And
so, Rob, what was the premise for the denial?
Not medically necessary. That's what it came across as. But Wes, let me ask you this question: with all your clients out there, how many office managers would give up on the first round?
Oh, I think most of them. Again, I don't think that our doctors, the doctors that I get to work with, I know working with you and the people that come to your workshops as well, high integrity people. We aren't doing anything that isn't necessary for the optimal health care of the patients that come into our office. Even when you have to say something like that that's coming from someone at the insurance company, I'm thinking, I don't understand that you're calling me a liar or something. Yeah, exactly. I get very upset about stuff like this. I hope that's not too emotional. But then on the other side is that getting our office managers and anybody else on the business team, because we've got some big business teams out there. It's not always just the office manager. We hire great people, and they're supposed to go out there and get the money, and we teach them how to do that. But they're bumping up against the wall, and you're right. A lot of them will, they'll stop. They'll give it up. But I know Tracy, and she won't do that.
Well, it's interesting. It's like the patient, we're the advocate for the patient, and we certainly don't like wasting time. I mean, it costs a lot of money if you go after them and after them and after them. You're pretty much, your direct operating costs go up with having your office manager chase that. But you have two options, right? You either write it off or you put it on the patient. You shouldn't write it off. You should at least put it on the patient. But what about holding the insurance companies responsible for what they do? I mean, how are it, or what they don't do, I should say, right?
Right.
So it's kind of like it's a really interesting situation that we're seeing out there. But a lot of team members, I know that you train when you're training the front office, you're teaching them how to go after these companies, how to battle the battles. But it was amazing that, we won that battle, and the insurance company got fined by the Utah State Insurance Commission, and they do not like being fined. And so I'm sure there's a target on our back now. We'll see what happens over the next 30, 60, 90 days. But it's amazing. We just did another one too, Wes. We battled an insurance company on anesthetic and won. Now, I know a lot of listeners out there right now are going to say, wait, whoa, local anesthetic, that's included in every procedure we do. And every insurance company will say, that's included in every procedure we do. But it's not. At the beginning of each category, it says local anesthetic is usually, the key term is usually, included in the procedure. That does not mean it's always. And there's a reason why it says that. And so we actually contacted the ADA because we're so tired of it. But Wes, in the ADA Center for dental practice, they have a statement that states the bundling of procedure codes by third-party payers, they say is potentially fraudulent. So we actually contacted the ADA and had this great conversation with them because we'd like to get that line taken out. That line was put in many years ago before you could Google things and look things up, for the ADA to appease its members, if I can use that word, and to also keep the insurance companies off their back because they wanted dentistry to include anesthetic. The problem that we're seeing is it continues to be one thing after another. It continues to be buildups. It was anesthetic years ago. It's perio charting. My gosh, if I hear another hygienist complain about perio charting not being a billable procedure, I'm gonna side with them, and we're gonna put some war clothes on and go to battle again with the insurance companies on that. But it's amazing to me to see how many front office people are constantly under the battle of being paid fairly for what they do. And Wes, over the years, what has been your experience and your view of insurance reimbursements? Have they gone up or down? And what is the doctor's salaries of the docs that you're training and that you teach? How much harder are they battling to either maintain the income they once had versus, or have you seen it go down also and it's a constant battle? What's your take on that?
Well, it is a constant battle. And, going back to what you talked about, anesthetic, I know that the expenses in every dental practice I work in, those expenses have gone up. The price of getting great team members. I live here in Colorado. There is such a shortage of quality team members to hire into these practices here. I know that the cost of insurance just to run a practice, the cost of getting my equipment managed and supported, replacement of materials and things in that order, everything's gone up, but my reimbursement rates have not gone up for most of my practices. Actually, I'm going to go out on a limb. I don't know how much we can talk about stuff like this online, but I had a doctor client actually send a document to me that talked about the State of Massachusetts Department of Insurance, and there was a ruling. One of the insurance companies that I think they have an airline too. I'm not sure, but the insurance company got together and wanted to have a conversation with the Department of Insurance to reduce reimbursement rates. I think the final ruling was 8.8% across the board for both. Again, I'm not going to mention the insurance company, but that's a reduction.
Oh, you can. It's okay. You can mention them.
Okay. Well, it's
because it's public knowledge.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So Delta. I feel better already. Delta. They went to the Department of Insurance, and I actually looked up all this documentation, so I have all the records and such. And what happened is that Delta came to the board and said is that we've done our own research. And we believe that, through some of our programs, including Delta Premier, that we actually overpay by as much as 30% over some of the other insurance plans that are out there. So what we'd like to do is have an adjustment down. And so,
okay, wait a sec, Wes. Wes, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a second. First of all, full disclosure, I was hoping you would bring this up tonight because I briefly mentioned that in a previous podcast about this information. But you're giving more detail that you've researched out and you've seen this. I want you to keep going and going into this detail, because what happened is Tracy ended up calling Delta Dental because we have some patients on that particular insurance because we get people from the East Coast coming in. And she goes, is this something Delta Dental's looking at doing across the nation? And the 8.8% decrease. And the lady said, well, and this is her words, we just decreased Arizona last year, and this is something that we're looking at doing nationwide. So don't be surprised if Utah gets tagged. We've already been tagged.
Yeah.
We can't go down another 8.8%. Keep going, Wes. This is incredible. People need to know this.
Well, the ruling came back, and it was very interesting because the document that actually came out talking about the discussions and the ruling and such said that Delta, and I think this was actually on their document, they said, we listened to the doctors that came to have this conversation with us, and we listened, and then we took their lead. And someplace in there, I was led to believe that the doctors actually approved the 8.8. And I thought to myself, well, I guess if you gave them a choice between 30% reduction and 8.8%, I'd go for the 8.82. But again, I started this whole conversation by talking about all my expenses. Larry Miller, we talked about him and the cost of my car. I think the doctors drive. I think they actually want to pay for kids' education and everything. I'm thinking to myself, I don't know, 8.8% is a lot of money. And, for all of the doctors. And if you're talking about all those other expenses, I don't see anybody cutting expenses on team members or anything else. So I don't know how that's going to work out. I just look at it as, for the doctors that I work with, it's not good. And the last piece on there that I remember is that, I don't have the document in front of me here. Like I said, if somebody called up, I'd hand it to them. And it said that this is all the first round of adjustments is going to happen on October 1st, 2019. So here we are in July, August, September, October. We're less than 90 days away from this stuff starting to take place. And I agree. I don't think Massachusetts is going to be the only one. So these kinds of conversations and teaching these business skills to our doctors and how to be able to go up against the insurance companies, not to cause a ruckus, but to play fair. Just to play fair. And so I'm off my high horse.
It's a tough deal.
I feel better.
No, you what do you mean? You've been pretty calm so far. Go ahead and cut loose like we normally do. It's just a podcast. There's just
I know,
hundreds of people listening every week. Don't let that bother you.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it. No F-bombs. So
I'll yeah. This goes right back to many of the podcasts that we have. Another fear that dentists have is the fear of upgrading. They don't think that it's legal. They don't think they can do it. And I'm telling you, if you're putting in more expensive products or doing more expensive services where there's differentials in cost of goods, or the insurance companies aren't paying for those services, you've got to be able to charge more. It's like we're upside down on composites. My son just ran a report on all the major procedures, and this is one of the things we do in our training. And we look at our fee-for-service fee, and Wes, have you come across offices that their fee-for-service fees aren't that profitable or not profitable at all? Have you ever seen that?
Oh, a lot of times. There's. It's interesting is that when we do our annual fee, the survey, and we come back and take a look at the top 25, top 35 fees, I know that we've actually had our doctors look at that, and they can't believe how upside down they are in some of the basics. And the conversation is that, maybe we're upside down in the basic because they've got, a hygienist or a chair-side assistant or anything, that there's just not any money in it by the time they pay all the expenses to get this done, what it takes to run the office, as well as all the material costs and such. But they feel like they'll make it up on some of the bigger transactions and some of the bigger services. And,
they think they're going to make it up on other services. Wes, what business runs like that?
Yeah. You know what? It's funny. It's the first one that came to me is the grocery store, because I'm a buy one, get one free kind of guy. But I'm thinking to myself, the only reason they can do that with the box of Cheerios is because everything else in the store is marked up and they know I'm going to stay and get the rest of them. I don't think that applies in dentistry.
Yeah, I don't. It's amazing. I keep asking myself, having worked for my dad in a battery company, we were a wholesale distributor, but we retailed out the door to the public too. And the two different price points, but both were profitable.
Right.
We weren't upside down. It wasn't, they weren't loss leaders. Nothing we did was a loss leader.
Yeah.
Everything had a profit margin on it. So I don't know.
Rob,
it's crazy.
My biggest upset about the whole thing is that I know that there is a cost differential in any material, implant parts. I know I can get, I'm going to say a lower grade part versus a higher grade part. And the dentists that we work with, the dentists you work with, that I work with, always want to do what's best for the practice. I'm sorry, best for the doctor.
And best for the patient.
And best for the patient. And the patient comes first. And it's usually at their, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's on their dime.
It is on.
It's at their cost.
For the patient's dentistry. And I know that there's other companies out there that, again, they may present it differently or something, so they can sleep at night. But I know there's a difference between, a $69 crown and something that I would get here from one of our fabulous local labs, or the ones in Utah or in other places around the country. The reason things cost less is that, what is it, speed, cost, or quality? You can pick two. You can't have it all. So someone's not getting exactly what they're paying for, or they're not getting what they came in for. And, again, if the doctors want to put in the best, they shouldn't have to figure out how to, maybe get a side gig or something like that. Is that the term kids are using today? A side hustle? So they can make enough money to put it through college. It just doesn't work for me.
It's tough. It's really tough, because one of the things that we look at that these charts are showing us is the actual profit margin.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about, getting more patients, being busy, working hard, and, doing all these different procedures. But when you start actually, if a doc would actually analyze their profit margin based on their direct operating cost per hour in their practice, how long it takes them to do the procedure,
yes,
and what they're actually getting paid, that's where it gets scary. This whole report that I had my son knock out over the last week showed that we're actually only profitable. That most practices, we were looking at averages across the board here with the ADA survey of what people are paid in the Intermountain states. And the one thing that there's only two categories that we're profitable on. That's placing implants and doing 3-unit bridges. Those were the only areas where you could guarantee that you're profitable on. Everything else, it's just it's a shot in the dark.
Yeah.
You hope the hygiene department's going at the same time. Otherwise, you're in the red. You're definitely not in the black. And that's a problem. And yet you go to talk about the word profit to our colleagues. Wes, what do? They clam up. They're scared. They don't want to talk about money. Yet they're in business to make money, but also more important. Well, I shouldn't say more importantly, but to also provide a wonderful experience of a service to the patients that they serve. And it's that fine balance that I continually see in the eyes and words in the docs that we work with. They just really struggle with that, and they struggle with that business point of view. And that's where I think you've done a superb job in helping practices understand that bottom line, so they can retire on time. They can pay for their kids' schooling, that they don't have to work 2 jobs. They don't have to be a dentist and a pilot at the same time just to pay the bills.
Or a private investigator or something like that.
Or a private investigator. Anything. That's right. So it is crazy out there. The other, fear to be profitable on procedures and what constitutes being profitable. Is it covering your overhead, Wes, or is it covering your overhead and having corporate profits? Which one is it?
Well, again, when I talk about profitability, I don't think that any doctor that went into private practice, they didn't buy into, running a company. They didn't buy into having a big team and being managers. They really got in because they wanted to take care of people. But if the practice is not profitable, and that means corporate profits, that means having something left over after everything's been paid, everyone's been paid, the phone companies and the gas and electric and everything else, not just the suppliers and not just the, manufacturers and vendors and things like that, everybody, the team members, that there needs to be something left over. Otherwise, you're not in business. It's a hobby. It's a hobby, and hobbies cost money. That's a terrible thing to say. Again,
airplanes
doing it.
Dentistry's a hobby.
Well, again, for a lot of people, is that they love the engineering component of it. They love the piece about creativity. Again, fascinating people. I'm not a clinician. I feared the dentist for the longest time until somebody that was a fabulous dentist. That fear went away from me. I take that back. I don't love going to the dentist. I go to the dentist now for the health, and I trust my dentist and I trust this team. And I have for years. I know they're there to take care of me, and they're not there to hurt me. That was just, that was how I grew up. But I want them to be profitable. I can't imagine coming in every day and having to see patients, and, you're trying to put your best foot forward and know that you're bleeding the entire time that you're there working. How could you possibly get past that and still deliver at the highest level, that patient experience that has me to want to come back? How do you manage your stress?
Stress. And that's what we see with a lot of our colleagues is they are so stressed out, just running their own businesses. And then they give up. Then they go work for somebody else.
Yeah.
We looked, the state of Utah, we're proud to say we're number one in a lot of things that we don't want to be number one in, like on insurance reimbursements. Louisiana either Louisiana or Nevada beat us out for the lowest reimbursement rates in the nation. And so we hold the number 2 spot there. But the number 1 spot that we hold that I'm pretty proud of is we have the largest number of solo practitioners. Wow. We honor and love our autonomy as business owners here in the state of Utah. We might not be very good at it, but we sure love it, and we try hard. A lot of our colleagues do. And the interesting thing about that is one of our clients up in the Northwest, she told me that when she was in her senior year in dental school, which was just a few years ago, she said that they had a week-long course on running the business side of dentistry. And she said, guess what happened? They brought in people from corporate dentistry and DSOs to come tell us that we don't have a choice. We got to go work for them for 5 to 7 years. And that just ticked her off. And she went out on her own from day one, and she's been successful from basically the first month on. So there's a lot of docs out there that have that entrepreneurial business drive, and they're quick learns. And when I say quick learns, what took me 20 years to figure things out, but it's like they're out there, and there's nothing more fun than owning your own business, being your own boss, and not working for somebody else. And that's the beauty of the cottage industry of dentistry and what it can provide.
Yeah.
If we don't continue that, Wes, I worry about us ending up like medicine, like a lot of my colleagues working for, basically IHC just took over. Dentistry is it's a weird duck. You can't, it's very difficult to turn every practice into a same-day surgery center. They never do that. Couldn't do that. But yet we tend to give up a lot of control if we're not careful.
Yeah. I went with a client, gosh, it's been 3 years ago now, when, the DSO model has been around in various shapes and forms for a long time. But over the last, I'd say 3 to 4 years, it's really come on strong. Even the language and the acronym, I think, has changed a couple of times. But we went to a conference in Arizona, and it was fascinating because there must have been 400 dentists there. And I traveled with one of my clients. There was an invite. He says, you know what? He says, grab a plane ticket. I'll meet you in Arizona. So we did. And we sat there for 3 days, and we did get a little bit of that. We had the DSOs. It wasn't so much that they said that, the people in the audience couldn't do it. It just, they said it takes an intestinal fortitude. He says, you've got to be able to, get up in the morning, and you've got to run this thing like a business. They were telling the truth about that. And I was going to use the word paraded, but I'm going to say they presented. And they brought in people from corporate offices, some big companies from across the country, to talk about what it's like to run a business. And then, kind of at the end, it was, if you don't have the private parts to run this business this way and actually get this job done. See, I'm trying to be nice, man. I shouldn't be doing that.
You're so politically correct, but coming from Denver, I get it. You should just be a little more.
We've always talked about the guys in the helicopters that can come down and rain on my house and everything else and take us to jail, and for telling the truth. Anyway, what was really interesting is that the DSOs in the room that day, I wrote this down. I actually have this sitting on my notes, for this whole conversation, is that they said, we don't have to make a killing on every practice. He says, as a DSO, dental support organization, he says, there's some built-in expenses that in reduction in expenses. Every practice out there has some sort of a bookkeeper and a CPA. And here in Colorado, I know a number of clients, and we're all paying about $25 an hour for our books to be done. Well, if I'm a DSO, I'm a corporation, I'm a business, and I've got 10 or 12 practices, I can hire an accountant or a bookkeeper to handle all 10 or 12 of those practices. And when I actually pare it down to what I get paid, what that person's getting paid per hour, it's a lot less than $25. They're running it like a business, and they're looking at the ways to shave the expenses and how to increase profitability. Here's what the big factor they said. It said that the typical DSO that was in the room that day is looking for a profit after everything's said and done at the end of the year of 14%. That means the associates have been paid, all the other employees, all the vendors, everything's been paid for, the mortgages, the rents, whatever they've got going on, all the debt loads and everything else. And we're looking for 14%. And I came back and I thought about that, and there was a guy sitting next to me, not my client. My client does much better than that. But he was sitting next to me. He says, 14% on $1 million practice, that's $140,000. He said, that sounds pretty good to me. And I looked at him, and my client looked at him. He says, what are you going to do with $140,000 a year? He said, you'll never pay off your debts. He just went down the list with him, and the guy kept looking at my client and kept looking at us. And I thought to myself, he's right. $140,000 in the scheme of things might be a lot, but it's not for being in his profession. Then the next line came out from the DSOs, and they said, you know what? It's really it's not a lot of money, $140,000. But he says, if you've got 10 of them, and that's what's left over after running 10 of them, or if you had 100, or like some of the other bigger guys in there, it was multiples of hundreds, and you've got some of those doing $140,000 a year, and they're being profitable, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And I thought to myself the entire time, this is a business conversation. There was nothing clinical. They didn't talk about parts. They didn't talk about materials. They didn't talk about anything. They talked about how to run it like a business. And yet I watched at the end of the day, all of the DSOs that were in the room, the corporations, they had tables, and the lines were half a dozen people deep at, like 2 different stations per table. And they're all interested, not in the DSO component. I'm sorry, they're interested in the DSO. They were asking, hey, so what do you pay your guys? What do you pay your dentists? And they were more interested in that because they looked at it, it's like, I don't want to work that hard. So, again, the dentist that is listening to this tonight, I hope that there's entrepreneurs. This is a business. Not before being a dentist, not before being a dental professional. That's why you got in, be that. But be a good business person to know your numbers, know what's going on, know how to be profitable. And, some of these things that over the years we've been, scared to do because people have told us about, they little stories, and this guy got in trouble and he got his hand slapped and then they got an audit and all this other garbage. And, I know those things happen, but if you know how to do it, you know how to do it right. It's legal, it's ethical. I think it's a necessity. If you want to stay in business, take care of patients, you better figure out how to make a profit.
That's excellent advice, Wes. Thing that I've noticed through the years is so many people out there complicate the business of dentistry, and it's not complicated. It's so easy to uncomplicate it. And I look at our schedule, and I've told our podcasters and everybody that I train, we average 1,150 to 1,250 active patients at any given time. You can put my schedule per month into 12 days a month doing need-based dentistry, but offering choice of value-added service and being paid fairly for what we do, whether they're PPO or fee-for-service. And we make a heck of a production and a heck of an income. Talk about freedom to be able to do things, to be able to start other companies, to be able to have family time. And this is the interesting one. To me, it's like you hit something really hard on the head, and that is to pay your debts. And these kids that are coming out of school right now, Wes, with $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 plus of student debt, making $120,000 a year, they're going to be paying that debt forever. And especially if they want to have a home, have a family, buy a car, whatever it might be, that's not a lot of money to go around. And it scares me when I look at many of my colleagues right now who don't have enough to retire on. And that's scary too. And that's where running your business like a business, putting money away in a retirement account, being able to have $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 million in retirement. If you don't have that, you're in trouble. And the older we get, the more costly it is to provide for medical for ourselves and our spouses and any other family member that might be in trouble at some point in time. it becomes more and more difficult. That's really that's really interesting that's what you caught up down there. It's interesting that you say that, though, because Arizona is I think they were the number one state for DSOs. Isn't that interesting?
I think they were all there.
I was looking that up while I have a graph that shows Arizona's number one for DSOs. Wes, give me 3 business principles from CEO dentists that you teach every offices, the clients that you serve. Give me 3 just powerful things that our listeners can just take away. Okay. I mean, you've already given a bunch, but give me 3 that are just always on the top of your mind.
The very first one is there about knowing your numbers. A practice needs to know the direct operating costs. You need to know what it costs to be in business. And, again, if you don't know those numbers, again, if you're taking home a paycheck, if your team members are getting paid, if the wolves are not at the door, if your credit cards are not climbing all over the place, there's this false sense of security. When you know your numbers, just like you did the analysis in your office, and you know what those numbers are, and you're looking at your reimbursement rates, that's a sense of security. When you actually know what's going on and what you can do in your practice and where you need to, focus your efforts, again, you'll invest in learning how to present treatment options and everything else, because if you don't, you've got to go the other direction. All you're looking always is that, how do you cut expenses? And the only way to cut expenses in our profession, in our business, is to figure out how to, buy products and materials for lower cost. I cannot possibly have the best people available to serve my patients at the lowest cost. It can't be done. Something's got to give. But if you don't know where you're trying to get to, what overhead costs and such, again, it just makes it harder to be there. Number 2 is that to understand is that, I think this is a funny one. Practices are always talking about I think the companies that do the consulting, that make the most money in consulting are the ones in the marketing field, about helping a practice get new patients. And a long time ago, I'm a huge fan of a guy named Jay Abraham. And there's probably some people on here in my age group here that know who he is. But Jay had a chart he put up one time that we have recycled over the years, and we can actually call it our bathtub. And our bathtub is production and collections, and we have 3 faucets above it because there's only 3 ways to run any business. And number 1 is to get new clients, new customers. We call them patients. The next is to have them frequent the practice. So again, our hygiene department is that component. We want them to come in over and over and over again. And then the third part of it is that the average price of what it costs for, a patient, not selling things they don't need, but making sure they say yes to the treatment that's represented. And a practice, again, they focus on the most expensive thing they can do, and actually the thing that's got the least amount of profitability. A new customer, a new patient coming in the door, patient acquisition, which is another one of those numbers that the practice needs to know. What does it cost me to get somebody to come in the door here? What's it cost me for a referral? What's it cost me for a billboard? What's it cost me for postcards? I think those are still available. Social media and everything. Huh. And, if you don't know what it's costing you, then that's a cost that you add in to what it costs to run your business. A lot of practices don't spend a lot of money on marketing because they can't afford to. They got to figure out how to pay for the other stuff. The hygiene department, again, we covered that earlier in this conversation, is that if I have a hygienist out there and it's a great hygienist, somebody with skill, and is really, truly taking care of your patients at the highest level, you're not paying $25, $28, $30 for that person. They're coming out of school today and they're commanding a great salary. The going rate here in Colorado, I don't know the last time I hired a hygienist in this town who was less than 40 some odd dollars an hour, plus any benefits and everything else, because all the other costs are being driven up. So if that person's coming in, and you shared this at the beginning, is that on those basic services, just to get people in the door, that ends up being a lost leader, unless that person has great communication skills, great education skills, great rapport and relationship skills, that patient wants to come back. They don't feel like they've been bludgeoned every time they come through for not flossing. We think that's still the answer. And then that person needs to be educated and understand what it is that they truly need so they can say yes to treatment. And it's not extra treatment. And it's not recommended. It's what's necessary. We tell our doctors, never tell them this is what we recommend. It's not what you recommend. This is what's necessary. You came in here, you said you want to be healthy. This is what's necessary. When would you like to start? And just like Larry Miller, and this is how much it costs. How would you like to pay? There's that upset.
Yeah. Larry, they think, everybody wants to drive their vehicle and they're willing to pay for it. That's something that I learned years ago. Everybody wants good oral health care and they're willing to pay for it. Treat them like that.
And then I guess the third.
What's that third one?
Third one, I would say hire great people. And it's not so much that there's not people. It's not this,
Amen.
There's a lot of really great people out there. There's some people that aren't that great, but I think that most people, just like you said, that people want great health care. I think people in this profession don't go into this profession. They definitely don't stay unless they're committed to being really, really great at this and they want to care for people. So hire great people. When you hire great people and you have them on your team, number one, set accountability. Here's what I need you to do. Here's what it looks like. I'm not going to let you just come in here and run the department how you want. We're a team. So we're going to set the standards of how we're going to deliver services and quality care to our patients. And we're all going to be held accountable to that. We have people that, again, they talk about setting goals in the practice, and I'm done with goals. People come in and they fabricate goals because they're missing the biggest part of it, is that they have a fictitious number on the board or something like that, but they don't stop as a team to sit down and put together a plan.
Wes, you just eliminated 85 to 90% of the consultants out there right there. This is what you said. They're always about goals, and I couldn't agree with you more. Keep going.
Again, it's about hiring the right great people, accountability and high standards, setting objectives, and taking the time to put together an executable plan on how to meet those objectives. Again, we talked about a second ago is that, new patient flow. Lots of people talk about new patient flow, and everybody's been talking about referrals and everything else because they know it's the best patient you can get. And it's from a profitability standpoint, too, because that patient already walks in with somebody else's credibility for you as a dentist. But ask the team members to actually ask a patient, somebody you've got a relationship with, a partnership with, and ask that patient for a referral. They're afraid of doing that too because they think like they're selling. It's like you're not selling. You've already done the work. All you're asking for is, would you bring a family and friend into the office? We'll treat them like we treat you.
Yeah. If you have family or friends that are as awesome as you are, we'd love to have them. If they're not, the dentist down the hall's taking new patients. Send those people there. That's what we always do.
Last thing I'm going to say about new hires, and this is the end of number 3 for me too, because I could go on this topic all night long. But the last thing is that, you know what?
Yeah.
Everyone doesn't deserve to be on your team. I hate to be as blunt as that there are team members out there that are A's, B's, and C's, kind of like there are patients that are A's, B, and C's. If you actually sat down and made a list of what is an A player like, and then you ask the doctors to sit down and grade your team members based on what an A player is. They show up for work all the time. They come in with a great attitude. They're always looking for the next thing. Doctor, what else can I learn around here? What else can I do around here to support? They're never at the center of controversy. They love on the patients. It's all those different things. You can make your own list. And then take a look at the team members that you've got. If someone on the team is not all that, or really at least darn close, like B plus, B minus, B plus. If they're not, let them go. Go find somebody else. I have found time and time again that I'll have somebody who's that C player on the team. And, there's an old adage that says, everybody lights up a room sometimes when they walk in and sometimes when they walk out. Look for the people who light up the room when they walk out and get them off the team. Either go find somebody to replace them that's another A, B player, or just watch. Your A players and B players will actually get the job done better than when they had the extra person. Rarely, if ever, have I seen a team. I find teams that are overstaffed because they have somebody on there just not going to pull their weight. And the people who are A's and B's will always get the job done because that's who they are. That's what they do. So hire great and fire fast. If they're not the right fit and we miss something, get rid of them. Go find somebody else.
Just to add to what you said there, Wes, hire people that believe in what you believe in. Whatever that thought leadership is of yours, hire those people that believe in what you believe. They'll work hardest for you. They'll be an asset to your practice. If they don't believe in what you believe in, we've got a client right now with a team member that doesn't believe in what that doctor believes in. And we keep advising that doctor, get rid of that person. They're dragging your practice down. And he's having the most difficult time trying to get rid of that person. And he'll pull that trigger eventually, but it's very difficult because we're so attached to our staff. We work close with them, and we know their personal problems. We know their strengths, their weaknesses, and it becomes difficult. But we have to do what's in the best interest of the practice, the patient, and ourselves.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Well, I'll tell you that.
I love that.
I feel the same way about patients. There are great patients, and you said, one of my favorite guys on the planet, I think, is a thought leader, is the guy named Simon Sinek, and I believe that's where you're, talking about people who believe what you believe. Yeah, and we talked about Start With Why, as the YouTube video and his books and things like that, and I think it's just fabulous. So we teach a lot of that in our practices as well. But it's not just about your team members; it's about your patients too. You have a philosophy about the kind of care you want to provide. If a patient doesn't want to be cared for the way you've built your business to care for them, these are the people, again, A, B's, and C's. A's and B's never miss their appointment. They're always on time for actually, they're early. They refer family and friends without a lot of prompting. When they come in, they're always accountable. They say yes to treatment. They're always concerned about their insurance, so they're going to get their benefit, but they don't say yes to treatment because of the benefit. They just want to make sure that they're getting every penny of value. They say to treatment because that's the right thing for them to do. And if you got somebody that's going to fight you on everything, short notice cancellations, you got people who don't show up for their appointments, they want to argue about the bill, you didn't go fight with my insurance company on my behalf, all that kind of stuff. You know what? There's two more great patients standing outside the door, and sometimes you let one go to the guy down the hall, like you said, so we have room for the next really good one. Because great people hang out with great people. And I tell you what, A's and C's, they don't mix well. C's don't like A's, and A's don't tolerate C's. And I think that's in every aspect. So go look for A's, patients, A team members.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I love that, Wes. And it's funny when you say that, because my mind's drifting. And I'm thinking about those patients that I had today, last week. I'm thinking about employees I've had in the past and in the present, and employees I may have in the future. And everything you're saying just continues to resonate. So let me tell you the story about a brave office manager in a doc in the Seattle area. Just today, they found this doc has been through our training, and it's exciting for us because when we have offices go through our training, they get excited about finding truth and learning truth instead of all the crap that's been taught to them by individuals in the dental sector. And this doc, she called Tracy today, and she goes, "You're not going to believe what I found in the Washington State laws. These are laws." And it's later in the day. I hope I can read this, Wes. This is going to be pretty funny, but under General Requirements, Administrative Controls, it's the Washington State Code 246-225-020. And this is in fine print, but it says, persons shall not be exposed to the useful beam except for healing arts purposes. The useful beam is in reference to our x-ray units, people. It talks about only a licensed practitioner of the healing arts shall authorize an exposure to the useful beam. And it says this requirement prohibits deliberate exposure for the following purposes. And in point 3, it says exposure of an individual for the sole purpose of satisfying a third party's prerequisites for reimbursement under any healthcare plan. Oh my gosh. How many times do we take x-rays to prove the need for treatment or to show that we've completed a procedure? We've got insurance companies out there right now that are stating that they have to have a before and after x-ray to prove that we actually completed the treatment. And right in Washington state law, it states that that's illegal for a third-party payer to do. Wes, what's your thoughts on that?
It's what brought me to working with you. Oh my gosh, what did we figure out? It was about 15 years ago, 13, 15 years ago. I walked in the room Yeah,
about
because,
15.
like I said, I'm not a clinician. I've been trained by some of the best clinicians, I think, in the country. I've learned how to speak their language, to understand what they're talking about. And every time you and I get on the phone here, this is the difference. We do a lot of the same kind of training. I know that we do. But as a clinician and living this life on a day-to-day basis, when people come to My Practice, My Business for the training that you offer, you're talking about being in the mouth and actually fighting the battle on a day-to-day basis live. That's what people learn in your organization and stuff. And then you come in and put together the stuff that we do at CEO Dentist, and they're great compliments. But, I'm listening to this, and again, none of my clients, all of my clients have great integrity. I don't work with people who don't have integrity. If it shows up in any of our conversations, I'm not a good fit. We don't believe the same thing. Simon Sinek, I'm out. And I'll take myself out. But I believe that my clients, the doctors I work with, don't take x-rays solely for the purpose of getting someone's benefit. They're doing it to take care of the patient at the highest level. If they don't have the radiographs, they don't have the films, they don't have the information, then they're not serving the patient. And somehow they've got to communicate that to the patient. Yes, we will use it to help them get their best benefit. But that's not why we do it. We do it because it's best for the patient. And if we do what's best for the patient, it's also best for the practice.
There's an insurance company out there right now that's demanding a before and after x-ray to show that a buildup was needed and a buildup was placed. We do have Aetna out there that is requiring a oral facial image shot with an intraoral camera. D0350 is the code. People have heard me talk about it. You have to take a picture to prove the need for the buildup, and they're not asking for a picture to be taken of the buildup in there, just the picture for the need of the buildup. And they're paying on that D0350 code. And I'm all about proving the need for treatment. That's what it's all about. That's why we win our battles. But this other insurance company that's demanding an x-ray before and an x-ray after to show that a procedure was completed, that just is crossing the line. That's unbelievable. And I'm glad to see that the state of Washington actually has a law that states that, no, they cannot do that legally. That's a breach of their law. And I hope the docs up there start letting them have it, telling them that, no, I don't want to add more gamma rays to my patient any more than I have to be able to provide the best dental care that we can possibly provide. I think that's an amazing thing. Wes, you and I could talk for hours, and that's what's fun. It's like we have so many stories and so many things that we talk about, that we learn from each other, that we're able to vent to each other, and that's why I enjoy talking with you all the time, Wes. It's just fun, absolutely fun. Again, I appreciate you being here tonight, and thanks for taking the time to be part of our podcast. And I hope that our listeners, I know I've learned a few new tricks from you, and I hope that all of you have learned some things of value from Wes Jankowski with CEO Dentist. You need to get your practice fine-tuned and get protocols and procedures in place and algorithms. Wes is your man to go to. He's been teaching this stuff for years, and he's got it fine-tuned and honed in. Give him a call. CEO Dentist out of the Denver, Colorado area.
No, Rob, thank you
Anything
for
else,
letting
Wes?
me be part of this tonight. You guys do a fantastic job at My Practice, My Business. And, someplace in there, you actually find time to be a great doctor, too. Don't know how you do that.
Once in a while, we make a few patients happy. Not everybody, but a few.
Have a great night.
Thanks, Wes. Thank you so much for tuning into the My Practice, My Business podcast. You can find additional podcasts you may have missed that will help you with your dental practice at Apple iTunes Podcasts. And remember to become a subscriber to our podcast. Many of you have asked how to help support the My Practice, My Business podcast. If you have enjoyed the program and information you received today, the best way to help is to leave us a 5-star review. Thanks again for allowing us to be a part of your day.